Chapter 18. Oak holds my hand, and I carry his small suitcase down the steps toward the empty parking lot. I look back up at Heather. She's dragging a bag behind her, and some bungee cord she says we can use if we have to put one of the suitcases on the roof rack. I haven't told her there isn't even a car. So, I say, looking at Vivi. Vivi smiles, reaching out her hand toward me. I take the ragwort stalks out of my pocket and hand them over. I can look at Heather's face. I turn back to Oak. He's picking fall leaf clovers from the grass, finding them effortlessly, making a bouquet. What are you doing? Heather asks, puzzled. We're not going to take a car. We're going to fly instead, says Vivi. We're going to the airport? Vivi laughs. You'll love this. Steed, rice, and beer as where I comment. A choke gasps behind me. Then Heather screams. I turn despite myself. The ragwort steeds are there in front of the apartment complex, stark-looking yellow ponies with lacy manes and emerald eyes, like seahorses on land, which come to snorting, snuffling life, and Heather hands over her mouth. Surprise, says Vivi, continuing to behave as though this is a small thing. Oak, clearly anticipating this moment, chooses it to rip off his own glamour, revealing his horns. See, Heather, he says, we're magic. Are you surprised? She looks at Oak, at the monstrous ragwort ponies, and then sinks down to sit on her suitcase. Okay, she says, this is some kind of bullshit practical joke or something. But one of you is going to tell me what's going on, or I am going to go back inside the house and lock you all out. Oak looks crestfallen. He truly expected her to be delighted. I put my arm around him, rubbing his shoulder. Come on, sweets, I say. Let's get the stuff loaded up and they can come after. Mom and Dad are so excited to see you. I miss them, he tells me. I miss you too. I kiss him on one soft cheek as I lift him onto the horseback. He looks over my shoulder at Heather. Behind me, I can hear Vivi start to explain. Fire is real, magic is real, see? I'm not human, and neither is my brother. And we're going to take you away to a magic island for the whole week. Don't be afraid, we're not the scary ones. I manage to get the bungee cords from Heather's numb hands while Vivi shows off her pointed ears and cat eyes and tries to explain away, never telling her any of it before. We are definitely the scary ones. Some hours later, we are in Oriana's parlor. Heather, still looking bewildered and upset, walks around, staring at the strange art on the walls, the ominous pattern of petals and thorns in the weave of draperies. Oak sits on Oriana's lap, letting her cradle him in her arms as though he is very small again. Her pale fingers fuzz with his hair, which she thinks is too short, and he tells her a long, rambling story about school and the way the stars are different in the mortal world and what peanut butter tastes like. It hurts a little to watch, because Oriana no more gave birth to Oak than to me or Darren, but she's very clearly Oak's mother, while she has steadfastly refused to be ours. Vivi pulls presents from her suitcase, bags of coffee beans, glass earrings in the shape of little leaves, tins of dulce de leche. Heather walks over to me. This is all real. Really, really real, I confirm. And it's true that these people are elves, that V is an elf, like from a story? Heather looks around the room again, wearily, as though she's expecting a rainbow-colored unicorn to burst through the plaster and laugh. Yup, I say. She seems freaked out, but not actually angry at Vivi, which is something. Maybe the news is too big for anger, at least yet. Or maybe Heather's honestly pleased. Maybe Vivi was right about the way to tell her, and it was only that the delight took a few minutes to kick in. What do I know about love? And this place is... She stops herself. Oak is some kind of prince? He's got horns, and Vivi has those eyes. Cat eyes like her father, I say. It's a lot, I'm sure. He sounds scary, Heather says. Your dad. Sorry, I mean Vi's dad. She says he's not really your father. I flinch, although I am sure Vivi didn't mean it that way. Maybe she didn't even say it that way. Because you're human, Heather tries to clarify. You're human, right? I nod, and the relief on her face is clear. She laughs a little. It's not easy to be human in Fiery, I tell her. Come walk with me. I want to tell you some stuff. She tries to catch Vivi's eyes, but Vivi is still sitting on the rack, rooting through her suitcase. I see more trinkets, packages of licorice, hair ribbons, and a large package covered in white paper with a golden bow, stamped with congratulations all along its length. Unsure of what else to do, Heather follows me. Vivi doesn't even seem to notice. It's strange to be back in the house where I grew up, tempting to run up the stairs and throw open the doors to my old room, to see if there's any trace of me there. Tempting to go into Madok's study and go through his papers like the spy that I am. Instead, I head out onto the lawn and start toward the stables. Heather takes a deep breath. Her eyes are drawn to the towers visible above the tree line. Did V talk to you about rules? I ask as we walk. Heather shakes her head, clearly puzzled. Rules? Vivi has come through for me plenty of times when no one else did, so I know she cares. Still, it feels like willful blindness to have overlooked how hard Tarin and I had it as mortals, how careful we had to be, and how careful Heather ought to be while she's here. She said I should stick by her, Heather says, probably seeing the frustration on my face and wanting to defend Vivi, that I shouldn't wander off without one of her family members. I shake my head. Not good enough. Listen, the folk can glamour things to look different than they look. They can mess with your mind, charm you, persuade you to do things you wouldn't consider normally. And then there's Ever Apple, the fruit of fiery. If you taste it, all you'll think of it is getting more. I sound like Oriana. Heather is looking at me in horror and possibly disbelief. I wonder if I went too far. I try again with a slightly calmer tone. We're at a disadvantage here. The folk, they're ageless, immortal, and magical, and they're not all fond of humans. So don't let your guard down. Don't make any bargains, and keep some specific things on your person at all times. Rowan berries and salt. Okay, she says. In the distance, I can see Madok's 2 riding toads out on the lawn, being tended by grooms. You're taking this really well, I say. I have 2 questions. Something in her voice or her manner makes me realize she's maybe having a harder time than I thought. 1. What are Rowan berries? And 2. If Fairyland is the way you say, why do you live here? I open my mouth and then shut it. It's home, I say finally. It doesn't have to be, she says. If V can live, so can you. Like you said, you're not one of them. Come to the kitchens, I tell her, veering back toward the house. Once there, Heather is transfixed by the enormous cauldron, big enough for both of us to bathe in. She stares at the black bodies of partridges, resting on the counter beside dough rolled out for a pie. I go over to the glass jars of herbs and draw out a few rowan berries. I take out a thick thread for sewing stuffing inside hens, and I use that and a bit of cheesecloth to make her a small knot of them. Put this in your pocket or in your bra, I tell her. Keep it on while you're here. And this will keep me safe? Heather asks. Safer, I say, sewing her up a bag of salt. Sprinkle this on whatever you eat, don't forget. Thank you. She takes my arm, giving it a quick squeeze. I mean, this doesn't feel real. I know that must sound ridiculous. I'm standing in front of you. I can smell herbs and blood from those weird little birds. If you stuck me with that needle, it would hurt, but it still doesn't feel real, even though it makes sense of all of these stupid evasions about normal stuff, like where she went to high school, but it means the whole world is upside down. When I've been over there, at the mall in Heather's apartment, the difference between them and us has seemed so vast that I can't imagine how Heather is managing to bridge it. Nothing you could say would sound ridiculous to me, I tell her. Her gaze, as she takes in the stronghold, as she drinks in a breath of late afternoon air, is full of hopeful interest. I have an uncomfortable memory of a girl with stones in her pockets, and I'm desperately relieved that Heather is willing to accept her world being turned over. Back in the parlor, Bibi grins at us. Did Youth give you the grand tour? I made her a charm, I say, my tone making it clear that she should have been the one to do it. Good, Vivi says happily, because it's going to take much more than a slightly aggrieved tone to get under her skin when things are going her way. Oriana tells me you haven't been around much lately. Your foot with dear old dad sounds pretty serious. You know what it cost him, I say. Stay for dinner! Oriana rises, pale as a ghost, to look at me with her ruby eyes. Madok would like that. I would too. I can't, I tell her, actually feeling regretful about it. I've dallied here more than I should have, but I will see you all at the wedding. Things are always super dramatic around here, Vivi tells Heather. Epic. Everyone acts as though they just stepped out of a murder ballad. Heather looks at Vivi as though perhaps she just stepped out of a ballad too. Oh, Vivi says, reaching into her suitcase again, coming up with another squeezy looking package wrapped with a black bow. Can you take this to Cardan? It's a congratulations on being king present. He's the High King of Elfham, Oriana says. Whether or not you played together, you cannot call him as you did when you were children. I stand there stupidly for a long moment, not reaching for the package. I knew Vivi and Cardan were friendly. After all, Vivi is the one who told Tarin about his tale, having seen it while swimming together with one of his sisters. I just forgot. Jude? Vivi asks. I think you better give it to him yourself, I say. And with that, I make my escape from my old house before Madok returns home, and I am overcome with nostalgia. I pass by the throne room where Cardan sits at one of the low tables, his head bent toward Nicasia's. I cannot see his face, but I can see hers as she throws back her head with laughter, showing the long column of her throat. She looks incandescent, with joy, his attention the light in which her beauty shines especially bright. She loves him. I realize uncomfortably. She loves him, and she betrayed him with Locke, and is terrified he will never love her again. His fingers trace their way down her arm to the back of her wrist, and I remember vividly the feeling of those hands on me. My skin heats at the memory, a blast that starts at my throat and keeps going from there. Kiss me until I am sick of it, he said, and now he has most certainly gorged on my kisses. Now he's most certainly sick of them. I hate seeing him with Nicasia. I hate the thought of his touching her. I hate that this is my plan, that I have no one to be angry with but myself. I am an idiot. Pain makes you strong, Madok once told me, making me lift the sword again and again. Get used to the weight. I force myself to watch no more. Instead, I meet with Bolsever to coordinate bringing Balikin to the palace for his audience with Cardan. Then I go down to the Court of Shadows and hear information about courtiers, hear rumors of Madok's marshalling his forces as though preparing for the war I still hope to avoid. I send 2 spies to the lower courts with the largest number of unsworn changelings to see what they can learn. I talk to the bomb about Grimson, who has crafted Nicasia gem encrusted brooch that allows her to summon gauzy wings from her back and fly. What do you think he wants? I ask. Praise, flattery, says the bomb. Perhaps to find a new patron. Probably he wouldn't mind a kiss. Do you think he's interested in Nicasia for Orlak's sake or her own? I want to know. The bomb shrugs. He's interested in Nicasia's beauty and Orla's power. Grimsen went into exile with the first Elder King. I believe that the next time he swears fealty, he will be very sure of the monarch to whom he swears. Or maybe he doesn't want to swear fealty ever again, I say, determining to pay him a visit. Grimsen chose to live as well as work in the old forge Cardan gave him, though it was overgrown with rose bushes and not in the best repair. A thin plume of smoke spirals up from the chimney as I approach. I rap 3 times on the door and wait. A few moments later, he opens the door, letting out a blast of heat hot enough for me to take a step back. I know you, he says. Queen of Mirth, I acknowledge, getting it out of the way. He laughs, shaking his head. I knew your mortal father. He made an eye for me once. Travelled all the way to Fairfold to ask me what I thought of it. And what did you think? I wonder if this was before Justin arrived at Elfham, before my mother. He had real talent. I told him that if he practiced for 50 years, he might make the greatest blade ever made by a mortal man. I told him that if he practiced for 100 years, he might craft one of the finest blades made by anyone. None of it satisfied him. Then I told him that I would give him one of my secrets. He could learn the practice of 100 years in a single day, if only he would make a bargain with me. If only he would part with something he didn't want to lose. And did he make the bargain? I ask. He appears delighted. Oh, wouldn't you like to know? Come in. With a sigh, I do. The heat is nearly unbearable, and the stink of metal overwhelms my senses. In the dim room, what I see most is fire. My hand goes to the knife in my sleeve. Thankfully, we move through the forge and into the living quarters of the house. It is untidy. All the surface is littered with beautiful things gems, jewelry, blades, and other ornaments. He pulls out a small wooden chair for me and then sits on a low bench. He has a worn, leathery face, and his silvery hair stands on end, as though he has been tugging on it as he worked. Today he is not clad in jewel jackets. He wears a worn leather smock over a grey shirt smeared with ash. 7 heavy gold hoops hang from his large pointed ears. "What brings you to Marforge?" he asks. "I was hoping to find a gift for my sister. She's getting married in just a few days." "Something special, then," he says. "I know you're a legendary smith," I tell him, "so I thought it was possible you no longer sold your wares." "No matter my fame, I am still a tradesman," he says, covering his heart. He looks pleased to be flattered. "But it's true that I no longer deal in coins, only in barter." I should have figured there was some trick. Still, I blink at him, all innocence. "What can I give you that you don't already have?" "Let's find out," he says. "Tell me about your sister. Is this a love match?" "It must be," I say, thinking that over, since there's no practical value in it. His eyebrows rise. "Yes, I see. And does your sister resemble you?" "We're twins," I say. "Blue stones, then, for your coloring," he says. "Perhaps a necklace of tears to weep so that she won't have to." "A pin of teeth to bite annoying husbands?" "No." He continues to walk through the small space. He lifts a ring. "To bring on a child?" And then, seeing my face, lifts a pair of earrings, one in the shape of a crescent moon and the other in the shape of a star. "Ah, yes, here. This is what you want." "What do they do?" I ask. He laughs. "They are beautiful. Isn't that enough?" I give him a skeptical look. It would be enough, considering how exquisite they are, but I bet it isn't all. He enjoys that. "Clever girl. They are not only beautiful, but they add to beauty. They make someone more lovely than they were, painfully lovely. Her husband will not leave her side for quite some time." The look on his face is a challenge. He believes I am too vain to give such a gift to my sister. How well he knows the selfish human heart. Tarin will be a beautiful bride. How much more do I, her twin, want to put myself in her shadow? How lovely can I bear her to be? And yet, what better gift for a human girl wedded to the beauty of the folk? "What would you take for them?" I ask. "Oh, any number of little things. A year of your life, the luster of your hair, the sound of your laugh." "My laugh is not such a sweet sound as all that." "Not sweet, but I bet it's real," he says, and I wonder at his knowing that. "What about my tears?" I ask. "You could make another necklace." He looks at me, as though evaluating how often I weep. "I will take a single tear," he says finally, "and you will take an offer to the High King for me." "What kind of offer?" I counter. "It is known that the Undersea has threatened the land. Tell your king that if he declares war, I will make him armor of ice to shatter every blade that strikes it, and that will make his heart too cold to feel pity. Tell him I will make him 3 swords that, when used in the same battle, will fight with the might of 30 soldiers." I am shocked. I will tell him, but why would you want that? He grimaces, taking out a cloth to polish their earrings. "I have a reputation to build, my lady, and not just as a maker of trinkets. Once, kings and queens came to me as supplicants. Once, I forged crowns and blades to change the world. It stands within the High King's power to restore my fame, and it stands within my power to add to his power." "What happens if he likes the world the way it is?" I ask. "Unchanged." He gives a little laugh. "Then I will make you a little glass in which to spend time." The tear is taken out of the corner of my eye with a long siphon. Then I leave, holding Tarin's earrings and more questions. Back in my own rooms, I hold the jewels to my own ears. Even in the mirror, they make my eyes look liquid and luminous. My mouth seems redder. My skin glows as though I have just risen from a bath. I wrap them up before I think better of it. Chapter 19. I spend the rest of the night in the Court of Shadows, preparing plans to keep Oak safe. Winged guards who can sweep him up into the air if he is lured by the delights of the waves he once played in. A spy disguised as a nanny to follow him and dote on him and sample anything before he can taste it. Archers in the tree, the tips of their arrows trained on anyone who comes too close to my brother. As I'm trying to anticipate what Orlov might do and how to know as soon as it happens, there's a knock on my door. Yes, I call, and Cardan walks in. I jerk to my feet in surprise. I don't expect him to be here, but he is, dressed in disarranged finery. His lips are slightly swollen, his hair mussed. He looks as though he came straight from a bed and not his own. He tosses a scroll down on my desk. Well, I ask, my voice coming out as cold as I could ever wish. You were right, he says, and it sounds like an accusation. What? I ask. He leans against the door jamb. Nicasia gave up her secrets. All I took was some kindness and a few kisses. Our eyes meet. If I look away, then he will know I am embarrassed, but I fear he can tell anyway. My cheeks go hot. I wonder if I will ever be able to look at him again without remembering what it was like to touch him. Orlov will act during the wedding of Locke and your sister. I sit back down in my chair, looking at all the notes in front of me. You're sure? He nods. Nicasia said as a mortal power grows, land and sea ought to be united, and that they would be, either in the way she hoped or the way I should fear. Ominous, I say. It seems I have a singular taste for women who threaten me. I cannot think of what to say to that, so instead I tell him about Grimsem's offer to forge him armor and swords to carry him to victory, so long as you're willing to fight the Undersea. He wants me to have a war to restore him to his former glory? Cardan asks. Pretty much, I say. Now, that's ambition, Cardan says. There might be only a flat plain and several pine trees still on fire remaining, but the four folk huddling together in a damp cave would have heard the name Grimsen. One must admire the focus. I don't suppose you told him that declaring war was your call, not mine. If he's the true High King of Elham, whom we are to follow to the end of days, then we've been a mite disrespectful, running the kingdom for him. But if he's play acting, then he's a spy for sure, and better than most of us. Of course not, I say. For a moment, there is silence between us. He takes a step toward me. The other night, I cut him off. I did it for the same reason that you did, to get it out of my system. And is it, he asks, out of your system? I look him in the face and lie. Yes. He touches me. If he even takes another step toward me, my deceit will be exposed. I don't think I can keep the lunging off my face. Instead, to my relief, he gives a thin-lipped nod and departs. From the next room, I hear the roads call out to Cardan, to offer to teach him the trick of levitating a playing card. I hear Cardan laugh. It occurs to me that maybe desire isn't something overindulging helps. Maybe it is not unlike Mithridatism. Maybe I took a killing dose when I should have been poisoning myself slowly, one kiss at a time. I am unsurprised to find Madok in this strategy room in the palace, but he is surprised by me and used to my sly footing. Father, I say. I used to think I wanted you to call me that, he says, but it turns out that when you do, good things seldom come after. Not at all, I say. I came to tell you that you were right. I hate the idea of folks being in danger, but if we can engineer when the other sea's strike comes, that's safer for Oak. You've been planning out the guarding of him while he's here, he grins, showing his sharp teeth. Here to cover every eventuality. Impossible, I sigh, walking deeper into the room. So I'm on board. Let me help misdirect the Undersea. I have resources. He's been a general for a long time. He planned Dane's murder and got away with it. He's better at this than I am. What if you only want to thwart me? He asks. You can hardly expect me to take it on faith that now you are in earnest. Although Madok has every reason to distrust me, it stings. I wonder what it would have been like if he had shared his plans for putting Oak on the throne before I was witness to the coronation bloodbath. Had he trusted me to be a part of his scheme? I wonder if I would have wiped away my doubts. I don't like to think of that being possible, but I fear it might be. I wouldn't put my brother at risk, I say, half in response to him, half in response to my own fears. Oh, he asks, not even to save him from my clutches? I guess I deserve that. You said you wanted me to come back to your side. Here's your chance to show me what it would be like to work with you. Persuade me. While I control the throne, we can't ever truly be on the same side. But maybe we could work together. Maybe he can channel his ambition into beating the Undersea and forget about the throne. At least until Oak comes of age. By then, at least, things will be different. He indicates the table with a map of the islands and his carved figurines. Orlaf has a week to strike, unless he means to set a trap back in the mortal world in Oak's absence. You have guards on Vivienne's apartment, ones you've engaged outside the military and who do not like knights. Clever, but nothing and no one is infallible. I think the place most advantageous for us to tempt them into striking the Undersea is going to make its move during Tarin's wedding. What? He gives me a narrow-eyed evaluation. How do you know that? Nicasia, I say. And I think I can narrow things more if we work fast. I have a way to get information to Balikin. Information that he will believe. Madok's eyebrows rise. I nod. A prisoner. I've already sent information through her successfully. He turns away from me to pour himself a finger of some dark liquor and flop back into a leather chair. These are the resources you mentioned? I do not come to you empty-handed, I say. Aren't you at least a little pleased you decided to trust me? I could claim that it was you who finally decided to trust me. Now it remains to be seen how well we will work together. There are many more projects on which we could collaborate, like taking the throne. One misadventure at a time, I caution him. Does he know? Madok asks, grinning in a slightly terrifying yet paternal fashion. Does our High King have any idea how good you are at running his kingdom for him? Keep hoping he doesn't, I say, trying for a breezy confidence that I don't feel when it comes to anything to do with Cardan or our arrangement. Madok laughs. Oh, I shall, daughter. Much as I hope you will realize how much better it would be if you were running it for your own family. Cardan's audience with Balikin takes place the next day. My spies tell me Cardan spent the night alone. No riotous parties, no drunken revels, no contest for liars. I do not know how to interpret that. Balikin is led into the throne room in chains, but he walks with his head up, in clothing far too fine for the tower. He flaunts his ability to obtain luxuries, flaunts his arrogance, as though Cardan is to be awed by this instead of annoyed. For his part, Cardan looks especially formidable. He wears a coat of mossy velvet, embroidered all over in bright gold. The ring given to him by Grimson dangles from his loaf, catching the light as he turns his head. No revelers are here today, but the room is not empty. Randalin and Nihwar stand together near the dais to one side, near 3 guards. I am on the other, standing near a patch of shadows. Servants linger nearby, ready to pour wine or play harps, as suits the High King's pleasure. I arranged with Bolsover for Lady Asa to get a note just as Balikin was being brought up the stairs and out of the tower for this audience. The note read, I have thought over your request and want to negotiate. There's a way to get you off the island, immediately after my sister's wedding. For his safety, my little brother is being brought back by boat because flying made him ill. You can go, too, without the High King being the wiser, as the journey is, of necessity, secret. If you agree that this will suffice, send me word back and we will meet again to discuss my past and your future. There is some chance that she will say nothing to Balikin when he returns to his cell, but since she has passed on information to him already, and since he doubtlessly saw her get the note, I believe he will not stand for hearing there was nothing to it, especially as, being a fairy, she must engage in evasions rather than outright lies. Little brother, Balikin says without waiting to be acknowledged. He wears the chained cuffs on his wrist as though they are bracelets, as though they add to his status instead of marking him as a prisoner. You requested an audience with the crown, Cardan says. No, brother, it was you I wanted to speak with, not the ornament on your head. Balikin's slight disrespect makes me wonder why he wanted this audience in the first place. I think of Madok and how around him I am perpetually a child. It's no small thing to pass judgment on the person who raised you, no matter what else they have done. This confrontation is less about this moment and more about the vast sweep of their past, the warp and weft of old resentments and alliances between them. What is it you want? Cardan asks. His voice remains mild, but empty of the bored authority he usually wields. What does any prisoner want? Balikin says. Let me out of the tower. If you mean to succeed, you need my help. If you've been trying to see me only to say that, your efforts have been to no purpose. No, I will not release you. No, I do not need you. Cardan sounds certain. Balikin smiles. You've locked me away for fear of me. After all, you hated Eldred more than I did. You despise Dane. How can you punish me for deaths you do not regret? Cardan looks at Balikin in disbelief, half rising from the throne. His fists are balled. His face is that of a person who has forgotten where he is. What of Elowin? What of Kylie and Rhea? If all I cared for were my own feelings, their deaths would be enough reason for me to revenge myself on you. They were our sisters, and they would have been better rulers than either you or I. I thought Balikin would back down at that, but he doesn't. Instead, an insidious little smile grows on his mouth. Did they intercede for you? Did any of your dear sisters take you in? How can you think they care for you when they wouldn't go against father for your sake? For a moment, I think Cardan is going to strike him. My hand goes to the hilt of my own sword. I will get in front of him. I will fight Balikin. It would be my pleasure to fight Balikin. Instead, Cardan slams back down onto the throne. The fury leaves his face, and he speaks as though Balikin's last words went unheard. But you are locked away neither because I fear you, nor for revenge. I did not indulge myself with your punishment. You are in the tower because it is just. You can do this alone, Balikin says, looking around the room. You've never cared for work, never cared to flatter diplomats or follow duty instead of pleasure. Give me the difficult tasks, instead of giving them to some mortal girl to whom you feel indebted and who will only fail you. The eyes of Nihwar and Randalin and a few of the guards go to me, but Cardan watches his brother. After a long moment, he speaks. You would be my regent, though I am of age. You come before me not as a penitent, but as before a stray dog you would call to heel. Finally, Balikin looks discomfited. Although I have sometimes been harsh with you, it was because I sought to make you better. Do you think that you can be indolent and self-indulgent and yet succeed here as a ruler? Without me, you would be nothing. Without me, you will be nothing. The idea that Balikin can say those words without believing them a lie is shocking. Cardan, for his part, wears a small smile, and when he speaks, his voice is light. You threaten me, you praise yourself, you give away your desires. Even were I considering your offer, after that little speech, I would be sure you were no diplomat. Balikin takes a furious step toward the throne, and guards close the space between them. I can see Balikin's physical urge to punish Cardan. You're playing at being king, Balikin says, and if you don't know it, then you are the only one. Send me back to prison, lose my help, and lose the kingdom. That, Cardan says, the second option, the one that doesn't involve you, that's the one I choose. He turns to Bulsiber. This audience is over. As Bulsiber and the other guards move to escort Balikin back to the Tower of Forgetting, his gaze goes to me, and in his eyes I see a well of hate so deep that I fear that if we're not careful, all of Elfham may drown in it. 2 nights before my sister's wedding, I stand in front of the long mirror in my rooms and slowly draw Nightfall. I move through the stances, the ones Madok taught me, the ones I learned in the Court of Shadows. Then I raise my blade, presenting it to my opponent. I salute her in the mirror. Back and forth, I dance across the floor, fighting her. I strike and parry and strike. I feign, I duck. I watch sweat bed on her forehead. I battle on until perspiration stains her shirt, until she's shaking with exhaustion. It's still not enough. I can never beat her.